The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Joseph Scarpelli, and I work with the sales team here at OpenMesh. We're really excited to have you here today to introduce you to OpenMesh. We're going to start it off right now with a poll. We'd love to hear about what type of business you're with. We'll give you about 30 seconds or so to answer that first question. All right, thank you for that, and we'll show you the results here. A lot of IT consultants and a lot of MSPs out there, which is great. That's exactly who we like to work with, so that's fantastic. And we're going to break this next 40 minutes or so into 3 sections. First off, our VP of Sales, Craig Tiffany, will give an overview of OpenMesh and some of the unique value that we bring to service providers and professional installers that will help you deploy wireless networks easier, faster, and at an overall lower total cost. Second, our sales engineer, Brian Patterson, will give a demo on our cloud management system, CloudTrax. We'll set up a new network for you and then switch over to an existing network that's been running for a while. This way you can see the system in action. We'll also point out some tools and features along the way that can help you deliver truly world-class Wi-Fi. We'll also be showing off the line of cloud managed switches and our new A-series of access points that have been recently introduced. Lastly, we'll have a Q&A section. So if you have questions throughout, please send them in. We'll be responding throughout the webinar, and we'll highlight some questions at the end. I want to note we will be sending out a survey later, and you must fill this out in order to be eligible for the drawing. And the drawing will be for a cloud managed switch and 2 access points. All right, I'm now going to turn the mic over to Craig Tiffany, our VP of Sales and Support.
Great, thank you very much, Joseph. For those of you who don't know our background and where we came from, we started out in 2005 as a not-for-profit, along with a company called, we were called Net Equality. We were working with a company called MIT RoofNet. After several years of working together, they became Meraki and we became OpenMesh. Continued on for several more years, and most recently, in January, we announced that we've been acquired by a company called Datto out of Connecticut, a backup, continuity, and disaster recovery company. A fantastic spot for us as they focus primarily on managed service providers, and it's been a great fit thus far. So getting started, just want to talk through how we make it easy and cost effective for IT pros to build smarter networks and manage them from anywhere. It's the goal of the webinar is to give you an overall introduction, not to go too in depth, but to give an overview of the product, of the company, and of the tools that can be used. So the question is, how do we do that? How do we make it easy for everyone to deploy and manage? First off, everything that we do is cloud managed, from the access points themselves to the network appliances, which are switches today, an 8, 24, and 48 port switch. You have the ability to build, manage, and monitor the networks from anywhere with a web application or with a web browser or with an iOS or Android app. And you can manage from one access point up to thousands from that one interface. You can also manage just one network, or you could manage literally hundreds to thousands of networks from that same web interface. Second thing is that it's easy and automatic. Mesh is always turned on. It's part of our name. So when the devices are deployed in a really scan and deploy or plug and play type deployment, what we get is a self-forming, self-healing multi-hop repeaters that have the ability to do seamless roaming and automatic mesh. You literally just plug and play. So what that means is the devices all have the ability to be wired, and we recommend that. However, if you get to a point where you've got a location where you can get power to, but you can't get data to, you deploy another device, and any OpenMesh device will work, and we will mesh to that. The devices themselves will figure out which is the closest access point or the strongest signal, and it will automatically create that mesh. As part of that as well is if you were to lose an Ethernet connection, the access point wouldn't just go away. It would look for its nearest neighbor, create a mesh, and continue operating as if everything was fine. We actually had an example of a customer who deployed open mesh in 2 buildings separated by a parking lot. They were connected by a fiber connection into their core switches. At some point during construction, the fiber between the 2 buildings was cut. Because the buildings were so close together, the open mesh access points saw each other and they meshed, and the secondary building continued to work for several weeks before they discovered that the mesh had been, or the fiber had been cut. So when we say easy and automatic, it's both of those things. So flexibility is a big thing for us. When we build something, we start everything with the managed service provider in mind. The devices themselves, or the installation of the devices themselves, they come with everything you would require to deploy and install. So the back plate panel has the ability to be mounted onto an outlet, a wall jack, a flat wall, a T-rail ceiling, or a pole. So you have the ability with that one device to do it. Also, the devices themselves in the A-Series, the A40 and A60, we'll talk about those in a minute, they come already water resistant. So there's no need for an extra casing going around the top of them. There's no need to add anything else. Everything comes in the box and ready to go. Reliability is a big thing for us as well. We know we started out as a not-for-profit, which meant that we didn't have a support staff. We didn't have a lot of people. Our engineers or our developers were our deployment people, which were also our support people, which were also our truck rolls. So we had to figure out a way to make the device as reliable as possible. So we built in some safeguards that aren't in other products. First off, we have a watchdog CPU that keeps an eye on how the CPU is operating. If it starts to go crazy or gets into a panic state, the device will automatically reboot itself and try to get back to a steady state. We also have a health check monitor that's watching other things on top of the circuit board itself, trying to make sure that we're maintaining that good state. If it fails 3 health safety checks in a row, it will reboot itself and try to bring itself back to work. We also have a secondary partition on our flash that we use to install latest and greatest software. So we will do an over-the-air upgrade of our operating system. If at some point when the device is rebooting or upgrading and the device fails, it will automatically reboot to the previous known good version of firmware, thereby not requiring yet another truck roll. And lastly, the cloud is hosted in AWS, which boasts a 99.99% uptime, and we've been able to maintain that without much maintenance on our end. I think we've had 2 maintenance windows in the last year. Both lasted less than 5 minutes. So we're well within the 4 nines, and we're bumping up against the 5 nines of availability. Moving to the next slide. Something that we probably should take the new off of, we introduced switches back in October of last year. An 8-port, 24-port, and 48-port. All devices or all the switches have full PoE budgets for 802.3 AF. So every one of them can be fully loaded with an AF device and pull power from them as needed. The 8-port has 2 uplink ports. They can be it comes with Ethernet and an SFP. It's one or the other can be in use. So in port 9, you can use Ethernet, and port 10, you can use an SFP with copper. On the 24s and 48s, they are both have 4 uplink ports that are built with SFP ports that can be used for uplink or connectivity. All devices are cloud managed. You have the ability to cycle power, configure, set VLANs, aggregate ports, turn on trunking, all from the switches themselves. They are layer 2 devices with some capabilities of layer 3, but only from the essence of thinking of separating a network via VLAN or SSID. This allows us to create one more level of reliability in our access points. So even if an access point goes through all of those activities where it's gone through the CPU health check monitor, it's gone through all the health check safety monitors, and it continues to fail and fails hard, at some point you're going to have to recycle the power on that device. With an integrated switch line, we know exactly which access point is plugged into which port on every switch. So you'll have the ability to cycle power on that one port, thereby hopefully hard rebooting that access point and bringing it back to life, and hopefully saving you and your team a truck roll. Another thing we have is we have the ability to custom brand the solution. Both the hardware itself comes as a white labelable or a white envelope product. I mean, there's no markings of Open Mesh on it itself. The new products, the A40 and A60, have a removable tab, and we ship with 2 tabs. One has the Open Mesh logo. One is a blank logo itself, which can be pad printed at your local pad printer. The devices, the OM series, which is our former series, are all white in color, and we do have customers who put labels on those or dome stickers on those devices themselves. To take it one step further, the cloud managed solution, our CloudTrax, can actually be branded by you, so that there can be no mention of CloudTrax or Open Mesh anywhere in the solution. Now, that's a paid-for service, and it's very inexpensive, but if you're interested in that, please reach out to us at sales@openmesh.com. Another huge part of what we do, again, this goes back to our roots of being a small organization. Every feature, everything that we put onto the access point is API driven. So CloudTrax itself is actually a client of those APs. So when we add new features, we first add the features into the access point, and then we have to build the API integration into CloudTrax so that we can then pull that information from there. That's very important for folks who already have their own console or their own management dashboard, and they want to just pull in API alerts or API alarms. You can do that today with a CloudTrax environment or an Open Mesh environment. We also have a Presence API available that enables next-generation location-based services applications and independent service software vendors. I didn't see any software vendors on this one, but there may be some out there lurking. Another thing is that we have very disruptive pricing. Our most expensive device is $225. That includes a lifetime cloud license. That includes lifetime email support. That includes lifetime upgrades. And when I say lifetime, I say the lifetime of the product. What I'm showing right here is the OM5P, or that's the OM2P. The OM2P has been around for, I want to say 4.5 or 5 years at this point. It's got no signs of slowing down. It's an 802.11n device, and it just works. And we have people using it and loving it every day. So people that bought this 5 or 6 years ago still get every upgrade that we do, still get email support, and they have access to the cloud for the lifetime of the product. So when we talk about disruptive pricing, we're serious. As I said, our least expensive is $75. Our most expensive is $225, and we'll kind of go into those after we go through the demo later on today. So with a lot of managed service providers and IT consultants out there, what we want to do is kind of share with where we fit, where have we had success selling the device. We don't do a whole lot of selling to end users. We've grown organically throughout the years. And so what's happened is people in specific markets and streams have decided that we're a good fit for them. And that's now where we market to and try and help our resellers, IT consultants, and MSPs help them sell into these spaces. The first one is our fastest growing, which is Office and SMB. This can be anything from professional offices such as lawyers, doctors, dentists, things like that, up to and including we were part of several presidential campaigns in the last election cycle. And now we've got several large businesses who are using us for their remote offices as a remote office solution. Hotels and resorts is a place that grew very organically and quickly for us. It started out as providers hoteliers looking for an inexpensive option that would allow them to manage. Once we were out in the market, we had several larger companies, service providers say, hey, here's an option to some of the other folks that are out there that charge a lot more money that still provide a cloud managed solution that has a captive portal, that has inexpensive and remote, it is remote managed. Another big population for us is retail food and beverage. This is, when you think about this, this is the Subways, the Dunkin' Donuts, the locations like this. We had a deployment this last year in the summer that went to 1,300 locations. And because of the way we deploy, it's, like I said before, very much plug and play. We were able to deploy, or the customer was able to deploy 1,300 locations in 2 days. The first day was simply boxing and labeling the devices. All MAC addresses were logged into CloudTrax. They shipped the devices overnight to each one of the locations, and then a retail associate was able to give the device power, plug it into their Ethernet connection that came off of their router, and they were up and working. So on the first go of this, 1,100 devices came up on the first effort. Over the next day, we worked on troubleshooting what that other 200 devices were. A lot of it was they were not unboxed yet, or taken out of the box, or plugged into power. They were given just Ethernet. At the end of the day, out of 1,300 devices, we ended up replacing 13 of them. So, essentially 1% of things we couldn't fix over the phone. Housing is where we got our start. So we got our start in low-income housing, trying to provide solutions and help separate that or close that technology gap that's prevalent today. And so that's where we've grown out of. So today, we're not only in low-income housing, we're in dorm rooms, we're in condominiums, we're in loft environments, we are in retirement communities, and things like that. Campgrounds is an alternative housing environment. So it's really where we got our start, and it's really where we've done a good job of keeping up and maintaining our foothold in this market. We're not, a lot of you are brand new to the company. We are not a fly-by-night company. We've been around for 10 years. We've got over 85,000 networks deployed today. And with that, nearly 26 million people have logged into an open mesh environment. And we've got over 300,000 devices deployed today. So proven. We're also worldwide. So we've deployed greatly in the North American region and Western Europe. However, we've got a fantastic presence in the Asia-Pac region as well as Australia, New Zealand. We're growing quickly into Sub-Saharan Africa as well as South America, and it continues to grow at a drastic pace. So before we get into the demonstration, I'd like to throw another poll up and ask, what are your biggest pain points for Wi-Fi today? If you could quickly answer that, we'll be back in about 15, 20 seconds here. All right. If we get everyone to vote, that'd be great, just so we see where everyone's at. You can select more than one if you've got more than one main pain point. All right, going to close the poll and share the results. So the biggest pain points today, not surprising. Cost being the number one thing, managing Wi-Fi. And hopefully we've allayed some fears there. Next biggest is poor reliability. We've built a lot of features into that. And lastly is central management. Captive portals, vouchers, and time to deploy are both up and coming as issues, but not the biggest that we're seeing. While I've got your attention, I would like to ask one more question. I'm going to hide the results and see, as Brian gets ready to do the demonstration, I want to know what open mesh features are most interesting to you, and maybe we could hit on those a little bit harder. So if we can get someone to take a look at this, vote on this would greatly be appreciated. All righty. Got about 3/4 of you voting, so we'll close the poll, share the results. And it's a good thing that the most important thing you want to see is cloud management, which is what we'll be showing next. We talked a lot about the reliability of self-healing mesh and the integrated switches, custom branding and API, and lastly, pricing. Pricing will be the last thing that we cover before we go into Q&A. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. Gives us a good idea to judge where we're going next with the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian now. And give him the presentation. And let him go. So that's you, Brian.
All right. Let me share my screen. All right, thank you, Craig. As you can see here, this is our CloudTrax interface when you log in. So this happens to be a master account of a service provider in Southern California who graciously allows us to use his account for demo purposes. And in this view here, this is the all networks view. And so this is where you can see all of the networks that are under your account. So you can easily go through and see if any networks have any problems. So you can see that this network has 25% of the APs down. So you should probably take a look at that, see what's going on. You can also see the latest firmware version and how many access points are on the network. Then you can also go over here and clone any network. So if you do a lot of networks that have the same settings, you can just take a template of a network and then copy it over to your new network settings. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to really create a new network. I'm going to give it a name here called webinar demo. Give it a Z up front so that I can find it later to delete it from his account. All right, so we're going to give it a password. And then we give it a location, because when you put your access points, add your access points to CloudTrax, you put them on a map to be able to find them. All right, so this application reporting feature here is something that the access points will look at all the traffic that's going through them and automatically classify that traffic and tell you how much bandwidth is going to things like YouTube and Netflix. And I'll show you that a little bit later. But that's something that you can turn off or on at the creation of the network. It does have a slight performance penalty because of the overhead of stopping every packet that's going through. So we give you the option to turn that off if you need a lot more throughput. Then we ask you what kind of network it is. That just gives us some information about where things are being deployed so that we can help tailor CloudTrax to those specific demographics. All right, so then you just click create, and it drops you into this new access, this new network, and it asks you to add an access point. So once you have an access point, you just give it a name. I'm going to call it Fubar, and then you enter the MAC address of that access point. You can also use our mobile apps to do this as well, and we have QR codes on the back of each access point so that you can just scan that with your camera phone and go from there. All right, so we have this access point added, and then once it is online and plugged in, it will check into CloudTrax and then download the configuration that we create here. So what we're going to do is go over to our SSID settings here and set up our first SSID. So by default, we give the first SSID the guest SSID, and then you can enable or disable this SSID if you want to. If you don't want a guest SSID, just turn it off. You can make that SSID hidden or visible, and generally you want that to be visible. And then the authentication process here, this is where you can enter a WPA pre-shared key, or you can set up WPA Enterprise if you want to use a username and password to log in. Right. And then you can also set up bandwidth throttling so that users on your guest network aren't eating up all of the bandwidth on the network. Then we also have a splash page option. So there's 3 different splash pages you can do. We have our built-in splash page. You can do Facebook Wi-Fi so that you can direct users to your Facebook page to prompt them to check into the page, and then you can get some more information from Facebook about who is checking into the network and who's visiting the business. And then you can also host the splash page remotely. So if you wanted to do more complicated things than what we can do through the built-in splash page, you can do that. And you can also use this field to connect to third-party cloud portal providers, such as Turnstile or ZenReach, Cloud4Y, things like that, that provide some value-added CapturePortal features. But I'll show you how easy it is to use our built-in splash page. So we give you lots of different templates to use. So no matter where it's going to be deployed, we pretty much have a template for you. So if we're going to put it into a Brewpub, we can just choose Brew, and you can go in and edit the HTML code if you want to get down and dirty with that. And then we also have a built-in terms of service that you could use. And then all of this is just simple WYSIWYG. So you can just type in whatever you want here, and it'll go. And then for getting through the splash page, there are several options you can do. So there's the free access button. There's a passcode access where you have a voucher code that you can issue to users. And that would be valid for a certain number of devices for a specific time period, and then for a specific bandwidth limit. So you could, and you can also set it up with both free access and passcode access, where the free access would be limited to the default network value of 5 megabit or less if you want to set that up. And then the passcode access can be a faster speed. So you can set up a paid access tier to be able to give to people if you want that. You can also set up radius through the splash page to provide username and password. And then we also have a PayPal button. With this PayPal button, what you do is you go into your PayPal account and create that button from your account, and it's tied directly to your account. None of the revenue passes through CloudTrax, so you keep 100% of that revenue. And then if you don't want any of these options here, you can just highlight it and click delete, and you won't have that option in there anymore. And once you're done, just click Save Changes, and then it'll go. All right. So down here, there are a couple other options related to the splash page. So redirect URL here. This is where you can send users after they've clicked through the splash page. So for instance, like in a hotel environment, it would direct them to the hotel's web page. And then down here, there's the whitelist and walled garden. On the whitelist, these are MAC addresses that you would put in there of devices that will automatically be authenticated past the splash page. So that's really useful for devices that don't have a web browser, such as like a Roku or a Chromecast and things like that. And then down here is the walled garden. And these are websites that can be accessed before they click through the splash page. So if you wanted to give access to your own web page before they get through the splash page, just type in the URL here, and that'll allow it. You can also block devices by MAC address from here, and when they do connect to the network and they're blocked, they'll be presented with a message that says this device has been blocked, and contact your network administrator. And that can be customized as well if you want to be more stern with them. You can go down here and also schedule Wi-Fi. So with Wi-Fi scheduling, you can set up a schedule. So if this place business is only open from 8 to 6, you can set that up so that the SSID is only turned on during those business hours. So that way, somebody living in the apartment above or somebody camping out in the parking lot can't just access the Wi-Fi whenever they want to. We also have a few other options here for band steering to direct 5 gigahertz capable devices up to the faster band on the dual band access points. And then these two options here, block LAN access and client isolation, are really important in public networks when you're giving guests to access. So the block LAN access option will actively drop connections to a private IP address, so at 10.0, 10.1, or a 192.168 or 172.16 address, those type of addresses would get dropped from the access point. And so what that does is that it only allows internet access through that SSID, and the wireless users would not be able to see anything on your wired network, such as a POS system or your printers, servers, anything like that. And then client isolation here is kind of a similar idea, except for it's for the wireless users, so that the wireless users can't see each other. So if somebody accidentally has file sharing left on their computer when they connect to the public network, they're not going to be exposing all of their files to the rest of the network with client isolation turned on. You can also enter an alternate DNS for each SSID, and that's really useful if you want to do web filtering. You can use a DNS filtering service like OpenDNS or TitanHQ, and those services are able to take those DNS requests and run them against a filter so that you can filter out objectionable content. You can also bridge any SSID to a VLAN, and you just enter in the VLAN ID there, and then all traffic would be bridged to that VLAN, and the wireless user would be able to see anything that's on that VLAN. You can also bridge untagged, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. All right, and then on the SSID2 page here, this is what we by default set up as your secure SSID. And so we have it turned on and visible, and then we automatically put in just a random WPA password here. All right, next, and then so all four of these SSIDs are available for you to work with, and you can do any of those features that I just showed you will work on any SSID. Next, I'm going to go over to the radio section here. The radio section is where you can set up things like your transmit power. The country setting will be updated automatically. We automatically set the country setting based on where the access points are located, so that they can't be set beyond the regulatory limits of that country that they're in. And then so you can set the transmit power here. That's useful if you wanted to, for instance, you have a very dense network and with a lot of access points, you'd want to turn down the transmit power so that you're reducing the interference in the area. And then normally I recommend people to use auto channel feature. The auto channel feature will automatically scan for Wi-Fi interference in the area and adjust the channels accordingly so that you have the least amount of interference on the network and the best connections possible. And those auto channel settings will change during the maintenance window that you can set up, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. And then this internet check option here, this is an option where the access points will continually check whether they have an internet access or not. And if they do lose internet access, they will turn off the SSIDs. And that's useful in a public network so that you're not advertising a network that just goes into a black hole. But if you are on a network that has local resources that you want to get to, even if the internet is down, you can turn that off, and that will still keep the network up even if the internet access is lost, so that you can still get to printers and servers and whatnot. All right, so next I'm going to show you the maintenance window. This is where you can select if you want to opt into automatic upgrades, and then what firmware release you want to be on. We generally have a stable release and then a public beta release that is available for you to opt into. And for stable firmware releases, we release those about every 3 to 6 months after they've gone through thorough internal and public beta testing. And then the public beta gets updated more frequently, roughly about once a month or so, as we as we're working on that development cycle. And then you can see here the maintenance window. You have a start time and then the duration. So by default, we set it up for 2 a.m. for 2 hours. So between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. and all 7 days of the week, that's when auto channel updates and firmware updates can take place. You can also uncheck that and to make it just for times that are convenient for you. All right, so next I'm going to switch over to a real active network right now, so you can see all the different information that you can get from inside of the of here. And yeah, and then when you have switches on the networks, we'll also give you some more options about switch firmware releases here as well. All right, so starting out here in the Manage section under Network Overview, this is where you see just a general top-level view of what's going on the network. So you can see how many users have connected over time and how much bandwidth they've used, and who your top clients are, top applications on the network, and whatnot. Let me go over to the access points page here. This is where you can see how much data each access point has passed over that time period, and how many clients are connected to that access point. And you can also click on each individual access point to get even more visibility into what data they have. And so you can see if there's any outages here over the past 24 hours. If there were any outages, that there would be a break in that green bar. And you can see the uptime. So this access point has been going for 10 days. And you can manually set your radio channels and your transmit power here. Since this network has auto channel turned on, these settings are grayed out. You can also go here and reboot access points remotely if for some reason the client is complaining about an issue. Sometimes you can just reboot the access point and that will fix it for them. And then over here, this is your neighbor section. So this is where you can see other access points within the mesh. So you can see how strong the signal is between those. And then in the near future, we'll also have a couple other tools here, such as ping and traceroute, that you can use to do some more remote diagnostics from the network. Then we also have the map view here. The map view also allows you to upload a floor plan. So this network has a couple different floor plans loaded here. And so you can see that this access point is associated with a floor plan here. And it is roughly located on this hallway right outside this unit. All right. So next, I'm going to move over to the switches section. So this is your basic high-level view of the switch here. You can see the switch name, its description of where it's located, MAC address, IP address, and its power budget. You can also remotely reboot the switch from here as well if you want to. And if you click on the switch, you get a whole lot more information. We just did a new switch firmware release and CloudTrax release about 2 weeks ago that added a few new features. And one of those is the uplink port detection. So we can see that with this white circle there, that is our uplink port. And then any port that's green, that means that something is plugged into the port and it's actively passing traffic. If the port is gray, that means that the port is enabled, but nothing is connected to that port. If the port is black, that means that that port is disabled. And then as far as the numbers go, if the number is orange, that means that PoE is enabled on that port. And if the port is white, if the number is white, that means that PoE is disabled. Down here, you have your per port settings here. So you can put a description of each port here so you know what's connected to it. You have your default VLAN ingress and egress. And then we also have the option to enable voice VLANs or port isolation. You can set up an access control list or an IPv4 access control list for each port. And then we have the quality of service here. So you can do set different priorities here for the different ports, so that if you have a high level of traffic going through here, you can prioritize certain ports. And we also have some QoS also built in from each individual frame, so that you can prioritize, for instance, VoIP traffic over web traffic. You can also set up individual rate limits for each port, and then you can set up your PoE priority here. So if it's set to auto, the switch will automatically manage the power budget for you. And if it goes over the power budget, then it will turn off lower priority devices first. You can also set a manual PoE limit. So if you want to make sure that one port doesn't go over 10 watts, you can set that here. And if it does go over 10 watts, then it'll shut down PoE to that port. All right, and then on the general options here, this is also where you can set the switch-wide settings. So you can set up IGMP snooping, your voice VLAN here, so you can tell it which VLAN that voice VLAN is going to be, and then your priority for that voice VLAN. And you set up specific MAC address prefixes here to show you what to automatically put those VoIP phones onto the voice VLAN for you. We have a few VoIP prefixes here, and you can add them yourself over in the configure section of the switch. Then you have a few more options down here for the switch, and then you can also see here, I forgot to show you earlier, that the switch will automatically detect if an access point is connected to it. So you can see that there's a forwarding table for the port. So we can see that this port has something from Apple connected to it, as well as this access point. So if you want to click that access point, it takes us right back over to the access points tab, and we see exactly what is going on with this access point. So the next section I want to show you is clients. On the clients section, this is where you can see all of the clients that have connected to the network over the period of time that you have set up here. So you can set that to last 2 hours, day, week, or month. So we can see that over the past day, this network has been fairly busy. Done 29.4 gigabytes of traffic, 28 gigs of download, 1.3 of upload. And we can see over here on our applications chart that most of that traffic is Netflix, followed by YouTube, and then miscellaneous SSL web. And we have lots of other filters built in here. So we have Facebook, Spotify, UDP traffic, miscellaneous video, TCP, all the top 150 websites and protocols on the internet. Then you can also see what clients are connected here and what operating system they're using, and their signal level back to the access point. So you can see the signal level here is also helpful for troubleshooting. So if you have a client that's complaining that they are getting disconnected, you can look at their signal level here and see that, well, it looks like this MacBook here is at a fairly low signal level. So it might be having some issues. Obviously, Doesn't seem to be having issues since it downloaded 8.7 gigabytes of traffic over the past 24 hours. But you could use that information there. If you, you can also sort all this traffic here. So if we wanted to see our top uploader here, which is often an indication of peer-to-peer traffic, you could do that. It looks like they've been well behaved on this network, so not too much upload. But if you suspect that someone is abusing the network, you can go over to the actions section here and block that client. And that way they wouldn't be able to pass any more traffic. You can also edit that client. So for instance, a lot of these Android devices have really weird names. You can just edit that name so that it can be something more intelligible to you. All right. So our next section I wanted to show you is a site survey. This is what you can use to get an idea of how much other Wi-Fi interference is in the area. And this is also what our auto channel algorithm uses to automatically set the channels on the access points. So so that each access point is set to a channel that will interfere the least with other access points that are closest to it. All right, so I'm going to pass the screen back over to Craig and show you the product slide that we have set up, so that I can show you a few differences between the access points and what they're best used for.
All right, thanks, Brian. Here are the products. Most importantly, the first, the A series. So
yeah, so with the A series, this is a brand new housing that we've created from scratch, and it's been designed to take all of our previous ideas of modularity and integrate it all into this one access point that comes all in the same box. So previously with the OM series, you had different enclosures for wall plug, outdoor, Ethernet jack enclosures. With this, you can do it all with this single box. So it comes out of the box water and dust resistant, so you can mount this outdoors. It's temperature rated from -20 to 50 degrees Celsius, so it can handle some pretty harsh conditions. And then the LED there it has lots of different colors that are used for different diagnostics. So it'll change color based on whether it's plugged in as a gateway or a repeater, whether it's booting, whether it's performing firmware upgrade, and several other things. And that center tab right there, it comes with an OpenMesh branded logo, but there's included in the box is another tab that you can just you can pop out the OpenMesh one, pop in the white one, and you can make it your own brand. And like I said, it has universal installation for desktop, a T-rail ceiling, a solid wall that you can screw it to, or a ceiling, and then you can also mount it to an Ethernet jack, and then an outdoor wall or pole. And then with the internals there, it has a USB port that isn't active for anything right now, but we can use it for future expansion. And it has dual gigabit Ethernet ports. One of them is a PoE in, and then the other one you can use to connect wired clients if you like, or you can daisy chain them as well. And as far as the hardware goes, we have reliability in mind for you, so that we really like to try to avoid truck rolls for you. And so we have a hardware watchdog included in there that will monitor things like voltage fluctuations that could lock up the CPU. And if it notices that that's happening, it'll automatically reboot the access point. And then we also have dual flash partitions, so that when we do a firmware upgrade, it gets flashed to the secondary partition, and then we flip the partitions and then boot from the new partition. If for some reason something goes wrong there, then it'll fail back to the known working partition and attempt to try it again. And so that way, it's pretty much impossible to brick one of our access points with a firmware update. All right, so next, so we have our full model lineup here. So we have from the OM2P all the way up to the A60. The OM2P is great for installations where cost is a big factor, but you don't need a lot of speed or you don't need to connect a lot of users. You only want to connect maybe 20 to 30 users maximum on the OM2P, whereas with our highest performance and highest capacity models, the MR1750 and the A60, those can handle about 50 to 100 users, and they're dual band 802.11 AC 3x3, so they provide a very fast throughput. And then we have a few other models in there too that are kind of in between. For instance, the OM5P AC is 2x2 802.11 AC, but in a very small form factor, about the size of a deck of cards. It because it has 802.11 AC in such a tiny form factor, it creates a lot of heat. So we had to turn down the radio power on that to make sure that it's good. And so that's good for single room deployments where you can just put one access point in every room and you're good to go. All right, so next slide. Then our switches, all switches have the same features. It's just a matter of how many ports you need. So you can do a full 15 watts of PoE on every single port and still be within your power budget. So just choose how many ports you need. And so next, we'll go over to Q&A. I think we have had a few questions come in, and we've answered quite a few through the chat. But
I do have one question I promised you I would ask you once we got done with it.
okay.
And it is, can we make changes on multiple ports at once? For example, I need to make 10 ports access for a specific VLAN. Can I do that with one click, or does it need to click on every single port and make that happen?
You would have to click on every single port to make that happen. Okay,
thank you.
All right, we do have some other questions here. Thank you for typing those in as we've gone. There are a few more than we can get to right now, but like I said, we will get back to all the questions we can answer now through email. So some questions here. What is the maximum number of APs on a network? And what about with meshing? So the max number of APs on a network, there really is no limit. We recommend putting more than a couple hundred just for manageability purposes, but in theory, there's no limit. And some rules for meshing, we use the 1:5 ratio for gateways to repeaters. So for every hardwired gateway, we would recommend no more than 5 repeaters. And next question we have, can you mesh any open mesh access points? So the N models, the AC models. So the OM2P would be our N model, and the OM5P AC, A40, A60, and MR1750 are AC models. And the answer is yes, all of these will mesh together. So all of our current models can all coexist. And another question is, if we have other access points from other vendors, can they extend the Wi-Fi with an open mesh product? The answer here is no. The entire wireless network there must be open mesh items. And there's a few things that we do for security and performance that require us to have full control, and this is all controlled in CloudTrax. Does CloudTrax provide content filtering? You can use a third-party DNS service like OpenDNS or Titan HQ. and you can actually set these up on a per SSID basis or on the entire network as a whole. I think the last question we'll have time for here is, let's see here. Oh, here we go. A question about the future for a router. Is there one in the works or some other type of security appliance? And the answer is we can't comment directly on future plans, but it has been a very popular request, and we've been known to be very responsive to our customers.
All right, great. Thanks, Joseph. And we're just about out of time. Just to wrap this up, just want to kind of leave on a note. You know, what we build and what we try to do is create a smarter, simpler network that's easy to deploy and manage, has powerful third-party integrations and integrations into your own systems via API, which results in fewer truck rolls and lower total cost. Again, I'd ask that you please fill out the survey. We'll be going out right after this session's over, probably within the next couple hours. Fill it out. You'll be entered into the drawing for one 8-port switch and 2 A60s. And we'll get that out right away. Thank you very much for attending. Brian, thank you for presenting. Joseph, thank you for the host. And have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.